It's time for the Covrprice Top 10. We're going back 2 years. All right, guys, we're going to get into this top 10 from 2 years ago. We're going to compare the prices from 2 years ago to today's. Were these books a bust? Were they a boost? This list does come to us from our friends over at Covrprice. And if you're interested, check the description down below. There is a discount code if you want to use it. It is an absolutely phenomenal tool for checking the value of your collections, specific books, keys, and there's articles on there. Check them out. It's a great tool, especially if you're a big-time collector in the hobby. All that, you know where to follow me, social media. I'm all over the place, VERYGARY_comics. Don't forget to give me a follow on Whatnot. And eBay, you can save me as a seller over on eBay. We're going to be running shows every Tuesday at 8:30. And we'll be doing Whatnot as well. But give me a follow over on eBay. You could save me as a seller. Again, VERYGARY_comics. There's other stuff to talk about, but better yet, let's just get into this top 10 list. Let's start at number 10. This is Star Wars Darth Vader number 3. 2 years ago, the Star Wars fan base finally got what they wanted. They were dying to revisit a fan favorite character in Boba Fett, and Disney delivered on their promise. They caught the majority of fans off guard when they introduced Black Chrysanthemum. That's definitely wrong. Chrysanthemum? Yeah. A Wookiee bounty hunter in episode 2. That made fans look at connections to other characters, including Dr. Aphra. That sent fans into a frenzy, acquiring copies of The Good Doctor's first appearance, producing high sales of $150 for a near mint raw copy, $550 for graded 9/8. 2 years later, we know that Dr. Aphra has yet to appear, and the Book of Boba Fett didn't quite stick the landing. It was kind of boring. Near mint raw copies are currently trending for $70, while CGC 9.8 copies are trending for $180. That makes this book a bust, but not one to forget. Dr. Aphra still has a ton of potential for the future of Star Wars, but Disney has admittedly pumped the brakes on the franchise as they attempt to reorganize. For the right price, this could be a solid book to keep an eye on. I agree 100% with Covrprice on this one. Dr. Aphra is a good book. I think it's a major key. It's under $200 and a 9.8. Probably worth taking a stab at. Book of Boba Fett was very difficult to get through until The Mandalorian showed up. Then it became like Mandalorian season like 2.5. It was good. It was good. Let's get to number 9. Let's just stick with Star Wars for a little bit. Let's go to number 9. This is Star Wars number 14. The Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian season 2.5, wow, was all anyone could talk about 2 years ago. That and Wookiees. Black Chrysanthemum was a name the community grew quite familiar with, and any book prominently featuring the character was hot. That includes this book featuring old Chrysanthemum taking on Chewie front and center. Excitement was high, causing this book to trend at $25 for a near mint raw copy, $100 for CGC 9.8. 2 years later, we know this book was simply a cool cover that caught the fan base's attention, with Black Chrysanthemum appearing in Book of Boba Fett. We are unlikely to see this battle ever play out in front of our eyes, leading this book to trend for $5 for a near mint raw, $15 for a 9.8. That's less money than it cost you to grade it. The most recent sale being all the way back in August. It's a bust only because that sense of hype was unstable, unless Disney delivered the goods quickly and brought this cover to life. Still, the door isn't closed on it happening down the line, but the avenue is a little cloudy currently. If you're a fan, it's a solid buy, but not one with high success rate of eclipsing the highs you saw 2 years ago. Even if this happens, it'll never see those numbers again. I said let's stick with Star Wars for a little bit. Let's go to number 8. This is Star Wars number 13, the Clayman Connecting Variant. As mentioned, anything rocking Black Chrysanthemum was on fire this time 2 years ago. Initially, many viewed this book as the first cover appearance of old BK. That caused a large run on this book, causing it to trend at $30 for a near mint raw copy and $30. That's weird. $30 for a CGC 9.8. Once the community dug deeper, the first acknowledged that Star Wars Vader Down #1 Z-Box variant and the Mile High Katie Cook variant held that honor. It caused a steep drop, and 2 years later, it's now trending at $5 for a near mint raw, $28 for a CGC 9.8. It's a bust in raw and somewhat a boost in graded, kind of, sort of, not really. mainly because at the time the community was still plugged into numerous resources and pulling the trigger rather quickly. It's held remarkably steady for the past 7 years, while the landscape has changed dramatically. Over that period, unless the price is right, it may be a book to steer clear of. Unless the two aforementioned books reach unprecedented levels, this is the number 3 book. May not receive the attention some feel it deserves. Don't buy this book unless you're paying $5. I mean, that's fine. Don't let this book escalate in price. Stay away. Don't get it. Let's get to number 7, I think. Thor number 20, the Simone Bianchi, 1 in 25. Yep, screwed that name up. 2 years ago, the community was all in on this Donny Cates Thor run. The stakes felt elevated, especially when Thor abandoned Mjolnir, and the fan base got a new character in the God of Hammers. The community saw a run on this book, driving prices up with near mint raw copies trending at 100. They were trending at, that can't be right. Driving prices up with near mint raw copies trending at $110. I guess so. 9.8's hitting $190 before it topped out at $300 back in March. Crazy. Numerous covers were available, and this 1 in 25 variant came in 3rd regarding fan attention. 2 years later, we now know that the God of Hammers would go on to perish in issue 23. That let a little wind out of the fan base's sails, causing this book to trend to $30 for a near mint raw copy, $70 for a 9.8. This book is a bust, but not solely because of the death of the God of Hammers. Thor Love and Thunder didn't fare as well as the community expected, really putting a damper on Thor's love. Still, as everyone knows, no one and nothing ever stays dead in the Marvel Universe, and we will likely see the character down the line. It's a cool cover, and there's always a market for the cool covers, but it's definitely not worth breaking the bank. Want to go back to Star Wars? This is a Star Wars heavy list, man. I remember this 2 years ago. The Star Wars hype was on another level. Let's get to number 6. This is Star Wars Dr. Aphra Annual number 1. Again, Black Chrysanthemum was all the rage 2 years ago thanks to the Book of Boba Fett. The community poured over every cover, every appearance, every story arc, and more. That includes this book, which is designated as the first solo Black Chrysanthemum story. It was one of the cheaper, important copies to attain, and the community did just that. That led a raw near mint copy. They were trending at $35, and 9/8 didn't have any yet. Not until May, and then it sold for $360. Jump forward 2 years, and this book has slipped significantly, trending to $9 for a near mint raw copy and $34 for CGC 9.8. Black Chrysanthemum faded as the series concluded. There is no timetable for a season 2 currently in which to grow the character, which I don't think we're going to see a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett. This one has fallen down the list of scope of key BK books. Still, it's a nice consolation prize for those who may not want to sink the cash into his first appearance or cover. That and his story isn't technically done yet. With the way the Star Wars universe is ever expanding, we will likely see the character again in some way, shape, or form, albeit not anytime soon, most likely. We have to see Black Chrysanthemum again because the character was cool enough to bring back. Chewie is kind of on the big screen, so we will see him again, but I don't know what it's going to do to these books. Let's get to number 5. This is Timeless number 1, the Humberto Ramos Miss Minutes variant. 2 years ago, this book was huge. We had just gotten the character in Loki Season 1, and she hooked the fan base. This book marked the first cover appearance of Miss Minutes and was the variant everyone was after. That caused this book to see high sales of $50 for a near mint raw copy and $220 for a CGC 9.8. Now let's jump to the present. We know that Miss Minutes returned in Loki Season 2 and has a potential to appear for Marvel down the line. However, her connection to He Who Remains and that whole saga of drama has cast a shadow over the character's direction and what the future holds. That has caused the book to dip, trending to $30 for near mint raw copy, $95 for CGC 9.8. This book is a bust, but has great potential to see a return to the level pretty close to the high it experienced 2 years ago. A lot would have to go right, but the door isn't shut on this book for good, especially with everything else it has going for it. If a copy crosses your path for a decent rate, snag it up. Otherwise, it might be one to wait for as the MCU has little clarity. I actually really like this cover. I kind of like this character, and I feel like $30 is maybe fair. Maybe a fair price. With that, let's go to a galaxy far, far away again with number 4. This is Star Wars number 20. Hello again, it's Black Chrysanthemum. This book received heavy speculation 2 years ago because it featured the storyline that imparted BK with his glorious scar above his eye. Old Ben Kenobi tuned him up with his trusty lightsaber. Well, the Obi-Wan series was around the corner and the fan base was convinced Disney would deliver the battle between the two. That caused this book to trend for $25 near mint raw, $125 for a CGC 9.8. 2 years later, we know that never happened, despite it making complete sense to help tie the greater Star Wars universe together. Now it trends for $7 for a near mint raw copy and $30 for CGC 9.8, making it a bust. It's a cool book for the fans of the character, bringing more life to BK in the universe at large, but with the Obi-Wan series likely not coming back, along with the Book of Boba Fett, it's doubtful we'll see this battle depicted on the screen. It's a book to steer clear of unless the deal is mind-blowing. I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was way better than Book of Boba Fett. Then again, I watched Obi-Wan Kenobi all condensed, one right after another. And Book of Boba Fett I watched weekly. Just felt very boring and drawn out. And I know people were kind of not happy with Obi-Wan until the end, but watching it all together I liked. I did hate the main female character. She was awful. Let's go to number 3. Thor, number 20, the Greg Land Villain's Reign. The first appearance of the God of Hammers caused every iteration of this book to sell well 2 years ago. It was trending for $20 for a near mint raw copy pretty quickly. 2 years later, we know that the character would die in issue 23, throwing cold water on the developing storyline. It now trends for $10 for a near mint raw copy, $30 for a CGC 9.8. Despite that, it's still a huge piece of mythology that Donny Cates developed and offers a wealth of options for the future. With Thor 5 reportedly going darker, the God of Hammers may be in play again. We won't know for quite some time, so if there's a good deal to be had, strike while the iron's hot. While the hammer's hot? Strike while the hammer's hot? Nah, the iron. With that, we have 2 more. And if I gave you the opportunity right now to guess what series the next book would be, what would you guess? Yup, Star Wars. This is Star Wars Darth Vader number 1. We have every other Black Chrysanthemum appearance on this list. Of course, his official first appearance would show up too. For a couple of weeks there, Black Chrysanthemum dominated the market after he appeared in the Book of Boba Fett. It was off to the races. His first appearance led the pack with a near mint raw copy trending at $40 and CGC 9.8's whopping $300 with high sales of $440. It rose quickly and faded quickly as well. Prices retracted, especially after he never appeared in the Obi-Wan series. Now, near mint raw copies trend for $15, while CGC 9.8 copies trend for $100. It's a bust, but it's a perfect example of the mindset that was slowly fading away. For over a year, books like this would rocket into the spotlight for the smallest bit of information or even a random appearance such as this one. The aftermarket would boom until the next book caught the attention. 2 years later, that trend has faded significantly, with the community being more cautious overall. If the deal is right and you like the character, now would be a decent time to pick up a copy, especially if top grades aren't your thing. It may see a rise in the future, but this book could offer collectors more than a monetary value. It's a door waiting to be opened, which leads to a rich Star Wars character and a whole new lexicon of lore. I actually think the Black Chrysanthemum first appearance is a fair price point because I can see it going up slightly when the character comes back. I'm kind of confident that this character will come back. I don't know when or how, but people really liked this character. We have number 1. Before we do, I want to remind you guys, down below is the Covrprice link. Check it out. Get that discount code. Enjoy. And with that, I'm going to give you a choice. You get one of two titles. One of two titles. And that's what our number 1 is. Here it is. Good luck. Give you time to guess. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here is our number 1. This is Thor number 20. The first appearance of the God of Hammers was a relatively new release 2 years ago, and it showed. It was much easier to acquire for collectors than the swath of Black Chrysanthemum books that appeared on this list. That's why it dominated the market for a time, trending at $25 for a near mint raw, but being too new for graded books. Thor: Love and Thunder was on the horizon. Fans loved Donny Cates' run on Thor, and the aftermarket was possibly at its peak. It was a perfect time to drop an interesting new character. But things can change in 2 years. As mentioned previously, with the God of Hammers meeting their end just 3 issues later, it was bound to see a drop. We see that now with near mint raw copies trending at $5, while CGC 9.8 copies hover around 40. This book is a bust, but leaves the door open to potential boost in the future. The God of Hammers influence may be felt again down the road. It's not worth going out of your way for currently, but it is, if it's the right deal, it may have enough potential to warrant being snagged. You may want it. I mean, $5 or like 40. I'd rather spend the 40 and get the 9.8 because it's going to cost you $40 to get it graded anyway. You might as well guarantee yourself the 9.8. Let's wrap this thing up because this list was little boring, but kind of the same, but I don't know. That concludes our retrospective of the market from 2 years ago. It was a wild time with a lot of fan excitement in the air. It was busts across the board, but that's not surprising when it predominantly features 2 characters. One would die in the book shortly after, while the other faded into the background. Despite that, there is a flicker of potential for every book on this list, depending on the right price and the right collector. The comic speculation market often influences trends in a major way, but it's a fickle beast. This reflection is evidence of that and cautionary tale for future collectors. It may sound like doom and gloom, but what a time to be in the hobby. It was the wild, wild west with new rules that established what continues to influence the current market today. With that, I will see you guys another time. Our next Covrprice video will be 3 years later. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep it comics.